Hello and welcome to the Geek In, a weekly podcast with me, Elliott, Kyle and Pickers, where we discuss movies, TV shows, and anything else that we enjoy. Why not grab yourself a pint and join us at the table?
So this week we'll discuss the announcements from Warner Brothers with HBO Max. Basically, the announcements of what films are going to be going on their new streaming service as of next year. But also, and another big announcement, Disney have also announced their lineups for films and TV for Disney Plus for next year as well in 2021. It's going to be quite interesting next year, especially what's happened from HBO Max and how people have criticised them quite heavily. There could also be a redemption for cinema with what Disney's announced.
Do you remember when the Sundance Film Festival they were booing the Netflix film? What a strange transition it's been.
It's interesting, yeah, like when they were booing him, because that wasn't long ago, was it? That was about 18 months ago.
Yeah, and
That they were
now
booing him.
that was just before Disney announced that they were doing their own streaming service, and now I don't see any of the actors coming out that were booing Netflix having a film at the awards, booing Disney for their decision.
Well, no actor's going to be doing it a minute because that's where they're going to be getting most of the work from. And when you look at the sort of the lineups that like HBO have announced, like you've got the new Matrix is going on HBO and Max. Because you probably know more than me.
Just
I know
Warner
a little
Brothers.
bits and bats, but as far as I understand it, I don't know if they're still getting cinematic release or not. I think they still are, aren't they?
Which makes sense because we're not in the UK. We're not getting HBO Max anytime soon, so that
It's-
we're not going to be able to watch these movies. So a
Sounds
lot of
like the same kind of thing that Disney's doing with theirs. So with quite a lot of their films, they're not just putting them on Disney Plus. They're going to be putting them on the Disney Premier where you pay the extra fee to watch it. But they're also going to be putting them in cinema as well. So they'll still have the full release. It's just for people that don't want to go to cinema, they can stream it at home.
Do you not think this is quite interesting? Because literally like 2-3 weeks ago, on first episode, we were discussing this very thing that having people are going to have choice between watching on a streaming service or going to cinema and watching it. And this is essentially what just happened and what they've announced. I know that they were expecting quite a lot from Tenet earlier in this year. And people have sort of criticised Christopher Nolan as well for pushing it to be released during height of pandemic, thinking that people will still be going to cinemas because they're not being mindful about the pandemic and spreading the virus. And obviously, it's not brought in as much money as what they were hoping for. In fact, I think they needed 800 million to sort of break even, and I think it came up to about 600 mil.
Just
so
to let you know, Wonder Woman 1984 is on the list for things coming to HBO Max.
So it's going to be released in
It's on December 25th coming to HBO Max.
Would anybody get HBO Max if it were going to be released in the UK?
Price. All depends on price. I know they're putting up Disney Plus. We all knew that were coming. It couldn't stay at £5.99.
Well, not with everything they've just announced. I mean,
No,
come on. But
it's still not going up that much.
Well, if you're getting now your annual pass, then...
Well, I've already got annual pass. I can't remember when that runs out, but I know even if you pay monthly, it's still only going up to, I think it's £7.99.
It's still not bad because the thing is, I pay $7.99 for Amazon Prime. Still not as much as what you're paying for Netflix. I pay top one, which is $11.99 for Netflix. So for everything that they've announced in terms of content, it's not bad money.
So, out of interest, how many streaming services are too much? Because this is always the question that if everybody moves to a streaming service, you're going to have to pick between which ones are your favourites. And at the moment, there's not that many. How many would be too many?
Eventually, it's going to have to get to a point where you're going to have to sort of pick and mix with your bundles because things, if you look at it like, I've got Virgin Media, so the majority of people in UK have got Virgin Media or Sky. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where these TV services are going to have to start giving people the option to basically just pick and mix, like have like a shopping list of channels that you want to subscribe to, and then you build that into your bundle. That seems, for me, the only way you can go forward with it.
But isn't that like what TV is like now with Sky and Virgin America?
Well, not really, because you haven't got much choice in between. You've either got Sky Movies, Sky Sports, or you've got your rest of your entertainment channels. What I'm talking about is all the other entertainment channels. Because let's be honest, I've got 270 channels, and I probably watch about 4 of them in terms of from entertainment bundle.
Yeah, but you don't watch everything that's on Netflix, do you?
No, but the thing is with Netflix, it is just one service you're subscribing for. So it's up to me what I want to pick and choose from at any point. Like I can go and I think I want to watch a film with George Clooney in it. and I'll just browse
think-
through it and pick one.
Your traditional TV, as it is at the moment with Virgin Media, Sky, that's dying a very slow death. I think I can't see it be around like that for much longer. I mean, I know Sky's pushing the Now TV, and I can see that them just becoming Now TV.
Now TVs, I used to have it, and it's all right. It's not up there anywhere close to Netflix or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus.
Now TV is amazing if you haven't got Sky.
Yeah.
If you haven't got Sky, it's the only way that you can watch your Sky Atlantic shows and things like that, isn't it?
Well, again, it's $7.99 for all that for all your. I mean, to be fair, you can have Virgin Media with all your Sky channels and still not have Sky Atlantic because that's just purely a Sky channel. So yeah, it does make sense. That's the way it's going to go, and it's going to have to go in a couple of years because people are just not going to do it. They're going to get a small TV package and just watch your Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything else.
Yeah,
I know
but
that's what I'm going to be doing.
But doesn't the bundles, the sort of Sky model is that you pay, what, 45 quid a month, 60 quid a month, you get everything. Whereas with these services, you're basically paying, what, £8 each for each one? I mean, that's about, what, 8 services? So
Yeah, but they're not. Yeah, but the thing is, if you think what Sky are doing, so you're paying for. I don't know how many channels Sky have got. Let's just say 300 channels they've got, like for their entertainment package. They're having to pay for each one of these 300 channels. Whereas if you do it as a subscription service, so obviously then you're not going to be paying. Nobody's going to pay the full whack for a channel. Like I won't pay £5 for Sky Atlantic because it's just not worth it. You know, you can pay $7.99 and you get Now TV, and then you've got Sky Atlantic with your Discovery channels. What they're going to have to do is basically just have it on a subscription service what people pay for the channel. So obviously some channels will make a lot more money than others, but you're going to have to give people a choice of doing it because that's the way it's going to go. People are just going to decide not to go for these big bundles with all these 300 plus channels and then just go for likes of your Netflix and your HBO and your Now TV because ultimately it might end up saving them money and they've got more on there that they do actually watch. Obviously at the minute they're paying money to all these 300 different channels. So like they're paying, let's say they're not going to be paying this much, but 50,000 to TVC, you know, that home shopping channel, but then they're paying 100,000 to Discovery Channel. It's going to ultimately, they'll have to cut back on these channels that people aren't watching, or put it up the option for if you want to watch this channel, you subscribe for it. So that way they're making their money back. These channels are making their money, but then people get to pick and choose what they want to watch.
So what you're saying is you want channels that are less popular to be subsidised by their fan group, by their core base.
You could pay for a bundle. I mean, I don't know. They're going to have to obviously do this. I mean, there's people that get paid a lot more than me to come up with ideas like this. But let's just say you give it the option where you pay 50 quid and you've got the option of 50 channels that you would watch in your bundle. So you can pick and choose your channels. And if you want to do it you could literally do it as like a rolling basis where you think, you know what, I'm not watching that channel anymore because it's not got anything on at least for a couple of months, so I'm going to take it off, like what people do with Sky Sports.
So what you're suggesting is you want more quality of content rather than quantity of content. You want 50 you'd rather pay the same price for 50 channels worth of content that you will watch more regularly than 300 channels of anything. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's something that will actually happen, but that just makes sense to me that that's what the way it would have to go, that you give people the option of picking what they want to choose in this price, and that way they're not losing out money because they're still getting the money. It's just been split between these channels. Ultimately, it probably might mean that a lot of channels get cut because they'll think, well, it's not worth us having this channel because there's nobody subscribing. So that's what's going to probably happen. But unfortunately, that's where I can see it going.
Do you think a Netflix or a Disney Plus? I'm thinking more about the Disney Plus HBO side of it. The big studios. Do you think that they would sign up to be like part of a curated bundle of services? So if you imagine Sky have there you go, right, well, your £50 package includes these Disney Plus channels, your Star Wars and your Marvel.
Well, like I said, they're going to be people are going to subscribe to these channels, so it's ultimately they work out a price. Sky. I mean, it might not work out. It might just literally be you pay for what channel you want to watch, and that's it. Or they do it in a bundle where you get the choice of these channels. The money they're making from these channels will then go to your studios or your streaming services like HBO Max. I don't know obviously for what price, but if you think at the minute, as far as I'm aware, I don't think Disney Plus is on Sky. I might be wrong. I know it's not on Virgin Media, but Virgin's already broken into a deal where you can have Netflix and Amazon Prime through your Virgin Media bundle. In fact, I might be wrong. I think Disney Plus actually have got a deal with Sky, but then you've got got these other services, say for instance HBO Max at the minute isn't going to be released in the UK, so they're not going to make any money in the UK other than from cinema releases. But if you give people the option for it, to have it in a Sky bundle, they are going to be making some money. And same as myself, from a consumer, I'm not going to want to pay, because I'm already paying like $7.99 for my Amazon Prime, $11.99 for my Netflix, $5.99 for Disney Plus. I pay for Virgin Media, which is 75 quid. I'm paying a lot for services, so if I could get it simplified and just put it into one bundle, I wouldn't mind paying 75, 80 quid to have it all together. Or ultimately, I could have it 90 quid, but then it's all in one platform. I've got the channels I want to watch, and I know I'm paying for the channels I want to watch, and then other people can pay for what they want. Like I say, that's how Sky Sports, for people that only subscribe to Sky Sports for football, as soon as the season ends, they're just going to take it off the package, and then add it back when the season starts. But Sky is still making the money from other sporting stuff that they have on during the summer, like cricket and other things. So they still make the money from it, but it's just people pick and choose what they want. They obviously don't make as much during the football season. So I think that might be a thing they have to do ultimately. But that's just my theory.
I'm a little bit interested. Do you think that you can see a world in which Disney Plus is only available through Sky, or do you think that those streaming services are too big, tied to old media, Sky and Virgin?
No, because you're getting a lot of Virgin packages where you get Netflix included for a year and things like that. These deals to be worked out, but I just think the old Sky and Virgin way of doing things, for me, I can't see it lasting. I think in a generation, it's going to be gone.
This argument always gets missed whenever I see a sort of streaming service versus cinema, and it's what happens to small independent filmmakers, liberal arts that doesn't have a huge audience and doesn't have the ability to get on at many cinemas. Do you think it will have a larger reach if it was to go on one of these streaming services, or do you think that streaming services, the big Disneys, will try and kill independent cinema?
I don't think they will. They will, because the thing is, I've watched a lot more indie films on Netflix compared to I've watched in a cinema, just because I've got the option of having it on there. There's some really good films being put on these streaming services as well that you just come across. Like a recent one is Pinning a Boat with Falcon, an indie film with Shia LaBeouf, with an actor who's got Down syndrome. Now that wouldn't have got probably much a wider
cinematic release.
Yeah, people wouldn't sort of know about it and been watched about it and discussed it if it was at the cinema. Because the thing is, you mentioned about liberal arts. Me and you went to see that, didn't we? We went to watch it at the showroom.
Yeah.
That didn't obviously pick up as much of a release as what you would have like going to watch a Marvel film or any other sort of mainstream films. But you put something like that on Netflix, label it as a Netflix original or something like that, and people will watch it because it's one of the first things you see, like when you go on the main screen. But I watched loads of films, like Uncut Gems from Adam Sandler. For me, that would probably classed as an indie film from him. However, one is probably his best films, and people have watched it, discussed about it quite a lot. But it's also word of mouth as well with Netflix. People have really got into it, watched it, and then they've just gone around telling all the friends and family saying, have you watched this yet? Have you watched this yet? Things like that on Netflix are beneficial for them.
So you think it allows them to take more risks?
Well, yeah, because you've got to think about Netflix and what they're trying to do as well. So they've got to put so many new things on there to keep subscribers or to gain new subscribers. And indie films are ridiculously cheap compared to your mainstream films and things like that. So it makes sense for Netflix to back a high amount of them, if you get me. Because that's more new things that they can introduce to their platform. So you always read, don't you, every single week, what's new coming to Netflix, and there's a list of films and there's a list of TV series. There's some of them old, some of them new. That's coming to Netflix, and people are constantly looking for new things to watch.
But again,
so with them being cheap to make, it's a relatively
cost-effective
way of filling them gaps.
But again, we're getting to the argument of quantity versus quality, where you're suggesting that 300 channels worth of something is better than 50 channels worth of quality content that you know and recognize. And the difference between having a Marvel film that everybody knows there'll be a certain level of quality, there'll be a big enough audience base, and an independent film.
Most of the thing though, so Netflix are constantly adding new things every single day. You don't watch them or you don't see them. It's a bit like your Sky, like your Sky. You've got 300 channels and you don't watch half of them. But every now and again, you do find a little gem, or it does pull some people into them. They've got to add so much, otherwise they lose subscribers, don't they?
It's,
And
I
they don't
mean,
really work on the same kind of profit base either.
well,
So
they work
it's
on sort of popularity, don't they? Netflix. So more
yeah.
people are discussing about a certain thing, it increases their shares.
As far
Or
as I
something
understand it,
similar.
Netflix as a company is mostly about share prices. The higher its share prices, the more the company's worth, the more funding it's got.
They want people discussing about a particular TV show, telling their friends and family, and it gets passed around. Like you said, not everybody's going to watch all these new TV shows and films that are going on, but all it takes is someone to watch it, really like it, and then start discussing it, and then it gets into wider press and on social media, and then that increases their share prices from it. There's something I was reading earlier about the Netflix effect as well. So with that Queen's Gambit, that there's been a rise in people's interest in chess. So more people have been buying chessboards and things like that because of watching a TV show like that. And it's something I never really sort of clicked on with that. When you watch a particular film or TV show on Netflix with something that you might start thinking about, oh, that's quite interesting. I might actually get into learning chess. Or
So you think that it has a beneficial effect, that it can get you into things that you might not have experienced?
like, for instance, Sony was, you've seen Spider-Man and
James
all
Bond's probably the
Bond stuff.
more.
Yeah, there's literally, you're bombarded with Sony products in that film. So they've been doing it for years, companies. So it makes sense doing it with a streaming service because they're going to just make money.
Somewhere in the world, Taco Bell is pushing Demolition Man to get back on Netflix.
Do you not want, it must have an effect on you. I mean, because there's an episode in How I Met Your Mother where Marshall was looking for a burger, and literally every time I watch it afterwards, I want a burger. That's the only thing I can think about is I want a burger, because he's discussing about the greatest burger in New York City. The way he's discussing about it in the episode is just makes you physically hungry, and the only thing you can think about is I want a burger after that.
Of course
And
it works. Otherwise, why would they spend millions and millions of pounds on adverts and advertising? As soon as you see someone on telly, it puts it in your head, and if you see it often enough, it'll make you do it, or you'll come very close to.
Do you not think it might have more an effect on you, though, watching it in a film or in a streaming service than it would just an advert?
I don't know, because when I see a Burger King advert, my mouth starts watering.
I think it justifies it. It depends on the film, obviously, but if you're seeing a character that you. I mean, the reason that they pick Iron Man is that Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. is a cool person, and you associate the burger with being a cool person, whereas if you see an advert, you probably just see a nice burger, and that's why they pick films, I think.
This is what I mean. This is what I'm trying to get at is, do you tend to probably ignore more what you see in adverts? But when you're watching it in a film or a TV show, are you more likely to think, all right, I might actually want that?
I think it probably justifies it more in films. I feel like it adds more weight to a product than if you see it in an advert. It sort of justifies its existence more.
Yeah. Well, I won't. It's something that, to be honest, I won't mind sort of looking into it a bit more on the back of this.
What, films versus adverts in terms of?
Yeah, in terms of marketing, like other products, and how more of it has an effect. Because this Netflix sort of effect has really got me sort of intrigued how much it does have an effect on not everybody, but some people, and it will make them get interested in certain things.
Just bringing it back to streaming services, I'm interested in both your takes. Either of you heard of the streaming service Quibi recently closed its doors?
Yeah, which promised they were going to be the next best thing, weren't they? And literally they closed its doors. But I think, didn't it only get released this year as well, Quibi?
Yeah.
Didn't it get released in like June, July time?
Pickers, have you heard of it?
It's not something I've actually heard, no.
Okay, I'll pitch you the idea. So the guy who was the CEO of the company used to work for Disney. He helped make films like Bambi, that era of Disney's most lucrative animated films. So what the idea was that people would watch Quibi when they were on the train. So you got high quality studio produced content in short form factors, sort of 10-15 minute chunks that you could watch on the train during your commute, and you paid a sort of £5 in order to get access to those services. Does that interest you?
Not really, no.
So you don't think it was the pandemic that caused it to shut its doors? You think
no, because pandemic's done nothing but help streaming services.
But
I know,
commuters.
traveling, but
Yeah.
if there were any kind of substance behind it, if there were any kind of real people wanting to watch it, wanting to see it, they still do it at home. People still watch Pixar shorts and things on Disney Plus. Don't think that you can get really into something and get a lot out of something that's only 10 minutes long or 15 minutes long. That's the issue for me. That's why I like TV more than I do films, is because it's 10, 20 hours long rather than an hour and a half. You get a lot more invested.
You've also, you could say commuters, but also you could also say people that just have got a low attention span because they're only 10 minutes. I mean, the thing is, an average time of commute probably wouldn't be 10 minutes. It's probably going to be longer. And that's what I'm just thinking. I mean, I'm just basing it on my commute and other experiences I've had commuting in the past. Usually a commute, I would say, would be about 30 minutes. So to put a commute in at 10 minutes is a bit unrealistic, at least in my eyes. I might be wrong. I don't know the figures and what it's like in the US. But I've been to New York. I've been on the subway, and most of the time you're not going to be getting a 10-minute commute unless, because like say if you're living in Manhattan, it's going to be 10 minutes. But to live in Manhattan, you're going to have a lot of money behind you, or like a well-paid job or something like that. It's going to be a much longer commute. So the thing is, like on my commute, I watch episodes which are 30, 40 minutes long because I've got the time to do that. Because I know your commute's a lot longer than mine.
It takes me just over an hour, so I can watch a full hour-long episode. I could get through Game of Thrones or...
Do you tend, it's quite interesting, do you tend to watch more on your commute than when you get
Yes.
back home?
I don't know, because I watch quite a lot at home as well, but I think if I were a normal person, I would watch more on my commute, because it's about 2 hours a day.
Our biggest argument with Amando, or my sort of biggest qualm with the Mandalorian series, is the episodes are too short. We're being 30 minutes.
I'd agree with that. I don't think that'd be my biggest quarrel with
Well, I know.
but
We've discussed the Mando before,
I'd agree with that.
We've all got different opinions on the Mando, but having something at 30 minutes or something like that, you get invested in it. Whereas being 30 minutes it's just not long enough. Like some shows, it works for shows like Community, The League, Always Sunny. Is it Bo Horseman, Jack? They're like 20-minute episodes. Those episodes, it works like
it's BoJack Horseman.
That's the one. That's what I was thinking of. But they work for being shorter episodes, and they've adapted to it to be like what they are. Like, when you watch an episode of South Park, you don't expect to be watching it for an hour, and that's how they built their shows. But other shows, like for instance, like your Game of Thrones, Justified, that's the third week running. But your Ray Donovans, you want to get invested in the episode because there's so much content in that episode. Whereas to stream it down to like 10 minutes, and it's not enough to really capture somebody into a TV show to keep them going. Because, like, if you watch a TV show and you're watching it and you're 30 minutes in and you're like, right, I want to keep watching this, and then you watch it for an hour.
I can see where you're coming from, but I can also see the other side of the story as well, because my issue with it isn't if it's done well, you can get a lot of development out of that 10 minutes. Like, have you ever watched any of the Pixar shorts?
Yeah.
Some of them are absolutely amazing. One of them springs to mind with the Chinese steamed dumpling, where the young boy becomes a steamed dumpling. And I think it's only 10, it might be pushing like 12, 15 minutes, something like that. And they are actually really entertaining. And you do properly get into it and you get a lot out of them. But how many films in a row can you watch? So if you sat and watched an hour and a half film, could you then go straight into another completely different film? And how many times could you do that before your attention's not there? Before, because there's so many different stories one after another.
You think it's the arc where you are in the arc.
Yeah.
You think it's a shorter episode with a good arc. It's equally as good as a long episode that expands its world, but it's just a segment of that arc.
Yeah, so you can have really good, but then I don't think, like the Pixar shorts, I can only watch one or two of them at a time, and then my attention's gone. I'm not as invested. I don't want to. It's another story. Do you get me? Can't watch 5 or 6 in a row.
I think that's more of a quantity versus quality argument. Pixar shorts are all very good. I can't think of any bad ones, but
same here. They're all really good.
But it's an argument of I'd rather have a small amount of good stuff than a lot of anything.
Which is my feeling about all the Disney Plus announcement. To be fair, it's took me days to figure it out in my head, but I think I've finally come to it. The Star Wars, it's not a good thing. I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, that's a nice segue actually onto the Disney announcements actually. So shall we just discuss obviously the Star Wars aspects, so what they've announced? Well, from the start, to be fair, I'm more excited about the Marvel stuff than I am the Star Wars stuff, even though I'm a massive Star Wars fan. Well, yeah, because the Star Wars, the Marvel stuff, there's so much. I mean, the Fantastic Four in particular has got me very excited.
I see. So it's Doctor Doom beats Star Wars. It's not
that. I just want to see Fantastic Four done right. I've seen two different. I mean, to be fair, the first lots of Fantastic Four films that got released in early mid noughties weren't bad films. They weren't great, but they were
Would-
sign of the comic book films coming out at that time. Like when you'd got like your films like one springs to mind, like Ghost Rider, for instance. That was
No,
terrible.
Spider-Man was out, Batman was out, Daredevil was out. There were a number of better films. I don't think you can say that it was the sign of its time.
But the pre MCU films that came out, you know, they weren't bad films. But I'm just looking forward to seeing a Fantastic Four in MCU done particularly well, which I've got enormous faith in Marvel. You know, everything they've done so far has been fantastic. So
So,
with the
Fantastic Four.
exception of with the Iron Man 3. But yeah, so discussing about Star Wars, so the announcements. So we've got quite a few different spin-offs from The Mandalorian, which I know we discussed in the first or second episode that Mandalorian were leading up to some spin-offs. It's an interesting take how it's going to lead on to with Mandalorian, because I think that's going to have a different ending now. I think characters like Ahsoka might turn up again, but I think she's going to do her own led spin-off show, which connect on the back of Star Wars Rebels, which is the final finale, because she's going looking after Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's from the wider Star Wars universe.
Are you suggesting that how well received the episode of The Mandalorian with Ahsoka was that allowed them to create a spin-off, or are you suggesting that they made a spin-off?
No, because the thing is, they're not going to announce a spin-off show right after releasing an episode, and it's got people talking about it. It's got quite a bit of acclaim about it. Let's do a spin-off. The plan all along to introduce her as a character must have been with the idea of having a spin-off show in the back of their minds. So no, I don't think that. I think they've always had an idea that they're going to do a Ahsoka spin-off show, and then, you know, this latest announcement has just sort of, you know, obviously confirmed that Ahsoka's going to go off and do her own separate things. She's going to look for Ezra. I know you guys don't know these characters, but Ezra and Sabine and go and fight at Grand Admiral Thrawn. So I think that'll be its own separate story. There might be Mando. She might appear in Mandalorian. Mandalorian might appear in her show. I'm not too sure. I don't know if they're going to link them or not.
They've already said that the linking Rangers of the New Republic, Mando, and her show, they're going to make it into. So they're going to accumulate to one big cinematic event, is what they called it.
Well, it makes sense with the Obi-Wan show as well, because I think Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show is going to explain what happened with Baby Yoda in the Jedi Temple and how he survived Order 66. So I think that's going to have a connection in the Obi-Wan show. Ahsoka's going to do her own separate thing in the TV show. Again, you know, it's going to be part, like you've just said, like a wider thing. So other characters might appear and drop in and out.
I think it's a type of Defenders kind of thing, isn't it? You got the Punisher's own TV, well, Daredevil's own TV show, Jessica Jones, that kind of thing, and then they came together and did the Defenders special.
I honestly hope they don't do that. To be honest,
that sounds like what they're doing for the three of them. We actually described it.
That was what they were going to do with the Universal Dark Universe, weren't they? They were going to introduce all these characters and have them turn up for like an Avengers type thing. Based on how it was in Netflix with Defenders, I really hope they don't do that, because
it won't as good as what I thought it'd be.
No,
I got very excited for it. It were a letdown.
Rangers of the New Republic, I think, are going to be more, you know, because you got that X-wing fighter talking to Cara Dune. Capital Worlds don't know about what's happening in the Outer Rim, so I'm hoping that TV show is going to explain more about the origins of the First Order and all that, which allow Mando to go on its own thing. Potentially more a backstory about Mandalorian, the different Mandalorians. So they're probably teeing up and do their own thing. So I think, in a way, it's sort of set all these shows on their own different paths with all different stories. Whether they all come together again and like Defenders, I hope they don't do that. Personally, I think it makes them. I like that they're in their own the same timeline, but I don't really want them to interact that much, or at least for like a big finale where they all meet up to fight the big bad guy. I think
I hate to break it to you, but her exact words were they all come together for a cinematic event.
Is that what she said?
Yeah. They're going to accumulate after they've all had the seasons. So after season 3 of Mandalorian, and after the other 2 have premiered, come together for a. She said a cinematic event, so whether or not means a mini-series special or a one-off episode, or our CW was kind of doing their thing where they're all going into each other's shows, I don't know. But yeah, that's happening, mate.
Out of interest, do you think that might be a that Disney's push to see what a streaming film would do in comparison to its cinematic world. To say that we're going to have a cinematic spin-off, streaming TV shows do as a film compared to what a cinematic release would do.
Maybe. I mean, I think it might just be more to get more subscribers in and people, because the thing is, with something like the Avengers, to really get into the first Avengers film, you had to sort of watch Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America to know who these people were for non-comic book fans. So I think it could be that. It could just be that they're going to do a massive cinematic event. So these are all the shows that are tied in with it that are building up to this cinematic event. So you need to watch all these. Hence, you have to subscribe to it to watch them all fully. You're going to be subscribing to Disney Plus for 2-3 months to watch all that sort of content.
I mean, that's a big gamble, though, isn't it? To say we're going to release a film at cinemas that you have to watch to know the background of all these characters. Do you not think that's a massive risk?
Yes, I don't think that's what they do. The cinematic event that she's referring to, for me personally, is probably going to be either a one-off film length special on Disney Plus, or a a one-off series with them all in.
I don't think it's going to be at the cinema. I think it's all going to be just on Disney Plus. But what I mean is, you have to watch all these other shows on Disney Plus for them to really know what's happening on the big event.
I see. So you think it adds value to the content that's already up there rather than you have to buy a streaming service?
I think that's what they're trying to push for in terms of more subscribers. Whether it adds value to content, I'm not too sure because I don't know what it's going to be like. Personally, I'm not looking forward to it just based on what happened with Defenders.
Well, that's what I mean. So the buzz, it worked with Netflix and Marvel. We were looking forward to Defenders. It's all that anybody could, well, not anybody, but all that us geeks could talk about. And regardless of how it played out and how disappointing it was, it still it worked. It put butts in seats.
Oh yeah, it worked, and it probably will work for Disney going forward with it. Whether it's going to be like what happened with Defenders, it all depends down to the quality at the end of the day. It's all good having that build up to it, but when you actually get the thing in front of you, where you've got all these characters in it, is it going to be like, for instance, when you'd watched all the MCU films and then went to watch cinema and then went to watch Avengers for the first time and see all these characters interacting together on live action? Or is it going to be like what Netflix did, where you've got really good TV shows, all these characters interacting, but it's been a massive disappointment for the show? So for me, I just don't. I'm not looking forward to it based on
It's
Defenders.
a risky one.
It is a risk, yeah. I mean, if they do it right, hats off to them. It probably will work, because then what you've then got is, you're following a similar format to what MCU does, which is where you have all these different films released, and then they all accumulate for a big event, and then they have other films, and then they accumulate for a big event. If they can do it like that, then it's a really winning formula. But it all comes down to that
Execution.
final bit. Yeah. If they pull it off, then yeah. But
yeah, for me, it's just whether or not it feels forced or not. Like Avengers didn't feel forced; it felt
natural.
I don't know how to explain it, because you knew it was forced. You knew they were building up to it.
But the thing
because
is,
they built up to it, it didn't feel so much like a commercial.
Yeah, like it didn't feel like, like the whole thing about Universal's effort and everything like that. It all just feels forced. You can see it coming from a mile off, and it don't excite you.
Well, it was same with DC. Racing to catch up, to what Marvel had done. That were their biggest flaw. And for me, what they're doing now, on their own terms, is working.
There's one-off short films.
Yeah, because they know they're good at like that. And the thing is, they've not got a chance of catching up to what Marvel have got with MCU, because the MCU now is its own sort of animal. They've got a really good form. They're going to just keep doing it.
But I think that might be the downfall of Marvel. And one of the things that I think about the Star Wars spin-off shows and things is that the problem is you add so much history, whereas the DC, the one-off films, you can kind of watch them in isolation. Whereas I think the problem that Marvel films and both this Star Wars film is that you will have to have a good knowledge of everything that came before it.
It's not just that either. It also affects how they're made as well. So the more laws and the more things that are behind it, the more you've writ yourself into a corner. Whereas, like the DC, the reason why their standalones are a little bit better, and the reason why these Marvel TV shows for me look good is because they're really original. They're really just pushing boat out. They've not writ themselves in a corner. They can do kind of whatever they want. You know, a bit like Joker. When Joker came out, it was something completely not how I expected it. But that's because he didn't have to write into Batman. He didn't have to write into this. He didn't have to include this because this is going to happen, kind of thing. So I could see that it might be a bad thing for Star Wars. Same with the Marvel Universe. I could see why that might eventually fall under its own weight.
I suppose it all depends on what. I mean, we're all basing it on the fact that it's going to have a similar format where these. I mean, they literally could just do it where you watch these TV shows, it goes to like a cinematic event, and then they just stop, and then they start creating their own separate shows with separate stories.
Yeah,
They
but
might
again, because there's so many different shows, they've all created little rules and they've all created little history. You've got to adhere to that when you're writing your next plot. So the more of that history and the more of that thing, the more things that you've got to keep in mind when you're writing the next story, the less free that a writer is to create something original.
I mean, it works. It works with Marvel. I mean, Kevin Feige's managed to, do it with Marvel. I mean, I know there's been a couple of occurrences, with like continuity stuff, but overall, they've had a massive success for that. Keeping everything alive.
Yeah, but the
Right.
longer you go, the more you have. It's not just about what you've done in the past. If you keep doing that same formula, eventually you have so much history behind you that there's no way that you can keep track of it.
Well, yeah, but you said that earlier, but let's just say Marvel MCU has been going for 12 years now, and it's like I said, there's been a full false continuity, but not enough to stop people going to cinema to watch a Marvel film. Just
Star
all it
Wars
is makes it annoying for nerds like us that pick up on stuff like that and complain.
But that's
Star Wars has been going a lot longer. It's got a lot more lore about it. I mean, it's already got how many hours were the Rebels and Clone Wars TV series that you worked out, Elliott?
I think Rebels on its own is 133 episodes, around about 20 minutes, and that's about 44 hours. That's before you take into consideration Clone Wars.
See, so you've got all that, and then now you've got 2 seasons of Mandalorian. You're going to have a season Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're going to have 3 films that are prequels, 3 original films, 3 sequels. You've got the standalone films that they did, like the Han Solo and Rogue One. You're going to have a Rogue One prequel. There's a lot more in Star Wars than what there is in Marvel, in my opinion.
And the difference with Marvel is that they can sort of go, well, it's a multiverse. So we can explain away the fact that this character does this and this character does this in the fact that it's a multiverse, whereas Star Wars all takes place in the same timeline.
Yeah, but the thing is, as long as they're consistent in what they're doing with the writing, they're vetting what they're doing, there shouldn't be an issue with what they're releasing. What you're
That's
trying
what
to
I'm
say
saying, though, is that
yeah, but the thing about Star Wars is got Knights of the Old Republic. They writ something in a completely different time with all these different characters, and it was a hit when they did the games. It wasn't connected at all to what happened in the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. It was its own separate thing.
you still got rules to adhere by.
There's rules, yeah, but the thing is, as long as they follow them.
The more rules and more things in place and more things that you can't do, the more originality gets squashed. So the less surprising plots come out. So the more that's being written, the more that they're done, the more series that are going on, the less original writers are going to be able to do, because they'll have to adhere by certain things, and they'll be like, oh yeah, well that pretty much lines up with this, but then this is wrong, or that kind of thing. Do you get me? So that eventually the quality will drop.
I understand what you mean about the longevity of what they're doing. How long is it going to last for? Where you're going to have that consistent level of quality? But the thing is, if they're doing something like this, they must have an overall idea. Unless they're completely incompetent, where they think we're going to do all this, and we're not going to plan for the next 5-10 years of what's going to be coming, but we're going to do this.
That's my big thing. So it looks like Disney ain't learned. So Bob Iger, who was the ex-CEO, he was CEO when they started releasing Star Wars films. So when they were doing Hope and not Hope, Han Solo, and doing
Kenobi.
I forgot name it. Yeah, Kenobi, and all the standalone films as well as the new trilogy. He was Disney CEO. Now, when Solo came out and they decided to stop doing the standalone films and pull them back because it didn't do half as well as what they thought, what he put forward and what he said made sense. He said maybe there's such a thing as too much Star Wars in in too small amount of time. Maybe you can't make $1 billion for every single film if you're releasing them that often, is what he were getting at. Maybe it's small, less is more. That's what we were originally getting to, and that's why they ended up stopping them films and going back to the drawing board. Bob Iger's no longer CEO of Disney, and then they've just literally just gone back to release as much Star Wars as you can. Everybody's liking it at the minute. Will people fall out of it? Will they get the same viewership? And if they don't get the same viewership, that leads to a massive problem because the series is linked.
You have to have initially Star Wars fans coming into Disney Plus to watch Mandalorian. Otherwise, nobody's just going to come out from outside and think, you know what, no idea who that character is. It looks a little bit like Boba Fett. I might watch it. The majority of the people who are going for is Star Wars fans. I mean, there's 1 billion Star Wars fans in the world. I think that was a number I remember reading one. So there's a lot of people that are going to watch these shows. So they're going to be appealing to that 1 billion. They might not be appealing to the rest of the 5-6 billion rest of the population. They've got to try and figure out a way to do that.
Billion seems a lot. There's only like 7 billion people on planet, and half of them might be like toddlers and kids, and then pensioners.
I think Star Wars has been out 40 years, so it's you've had friends and family talking about Star Wars for years, and people watching it. Now, some of those 1 billion obviously will be more diehard Star Wars fans than other people, but it's the same with the MCU and Marvel and DC stuff. Majority of people that watch these films are not like us, where we'll read the comics and we'll do graphic novels and really get into the characters.
But there's a difference in the Marvel films, the sort of Spider-Man films and the Captain Americas don't talk too much about the comic books. Whereas, so they only take place over the course of 8 years that has gone by. The Star Wars films have a history of like 40 years, and they encompass everything. It's not like the Marvel films.
Yeah, but the thing is with Star Wars is they've been that much in popular culture for all these years that people know about these characters. Like you said,
nobody knows, right? Did you know about Ahsoka until this film, until Mando talked about it, Pickers?
I think I might have seen maybe like an action figure or something once or twice. That's about the depth of my knowledge around her.
Ahsoka is not what you're watching Mandalorian for, though. It's Ahsoka's in there, and she's a nice nod for all these characters who know about it. The diehard Star Wars fans that know about Ahsoka, that watched Clone Wars and watched Star Wars Rebels. For you guys watching it, it's just a character that's being introduced. She's a cool character that's coming with some white lightsabers, and she's getting a spin-off show. But it's going to be about.
Cool. Well, am I the only one that thought that? Like, if for a grand entrance that we now know we're meant to be a grand entrance to her own series and everything, she were a bit of a letdown. On a spectacular episode.
But let's just think from an outsider point of view. For somebody coming into it who's just watching Mandalorian because the character looks like Boba Fett and there's baby Yoda in there. People know about Yoda. They're watching it for that relationship. And with all these different Star Wars things. There's a character coming. It's her first appearance for a lightsaber in there. She's got white lightsabers and she was meant to be cool. Whether people think she's cool or not, that's what they're aiming for. I thought she was cool anyway. But Disney Plus, when they say, oh, by the way, we've got a new show coming out on Disney Plus, we know you're already watching Mandalorian, but it's this character that appears in Mandalorian. It's similar to what Netflix do, which is, oh, we've got a new original out. Why don't you watch that? That's what they're going to be doing.
No, I think it's different because Netflix originals are different.
But the thing is, with Daredevil, people watch Daredevil, then they watched Jessica Jones, and then they watched all the others that came on the back of it.
Yeah, but there was only 4 or 5 seasons to watch. There wasn't 40 years worth of content.
Yeah, but this is what I'm trying to. There's 1 billion worth of people that are Star Wars fan. All these people have watched Star Wars over the last 40 years. They're not having to then go back and watch everything. I mean, and if they are, they're only going to have to really go back and watch 9 films worth. 6 films if you take off the sequels because they're not worth watching.
But I don't know if Disney wants to have people who watch Star Wars watch their TV show because that limits your audience and that limits your further growth. Because in 30 years, you think people are going to start watching The Mandalorian if they haven't watched the original Star Wars film?
But there are people watching The Mandalorian that might not be Star Wars fans that just subscribe to Disney Plus and they think Baby Yoda's cute, and they're
One of
watching
them
for
is
that reason.
so my girlfriend's dad. He watches Mandalorian. Knows nothing about Star Wars, and I've got to say, he says some episodes he does like, and then some he's just getting bored with it. He just watches it now out of habit because it's something new to watch on a Friday.
But if they release a show saying on Disney Plus, then he can watch it.
I don't think he's that excited about it. I started telling him about all the new things that they've announced, and he won't.
But that's an extra viewer that they wouldn't have already had before, because he wasn't a Star Wars fan.
But he would have watched the
like I
films.
say,
He would have gone to
there's a-
see the cinema releases.
Like I
say,
say,
he's watched all the films. It's not that bothered about Mandalorian. It just gets a bit bored with it. He don't really know.
but he's
You have
still
to know too
watching
much
it.
about
it
it.
and stuff. Yeah.
He's still watching it. He's still paying. I don't know if he's paying for Disney Plus, but he's still paying $5.99 a month, and he's watching it. Now, whether he's interested in it or not, he's still making money for it.
Yeah,
Like
but
I said,
he won't be watching the other ones.
Well, they're going to be wanting to do it to make money. So they're not going to just release a show and think, you know what, let's release a show and get 7 billion on the people on the planet to watch this show. Or shall we watch it for the billion people that are already Star Wars fans to get them subscribing and paying the money?
Yeah, but the fact is, you could release a new IP under Disney. Disney is a big enough brand to carry a new IP, and they would more than likely just go, right, you subscribe to Disney Plus, this is all the new content we have, and I'm sure they'll get 1 billion people sign up to it. Whereas they've got this Star Wars IP.
Than what these Star Wars fans out there.
What they're doing is releasing all these shows to get people thinking, well, I'm paying $5.99 a minute for Disney Plus I might just cancel it in a month. Then they release all these shows and think, oh, I'm going to have to keep paying for it because they're going to keep bringing out all these shows.
Do you think the average person that watches Disney Plus looks out for the release notes? Because I didn't know about the Disney Plus releases until you pointed it out, and I still don't. Because BBC and The Guardian and all those media platforms don't put out what's on streaming services. So the only people that put out streaming service information is people like you.
Yeah, but we're discussing this because obviously that's something we're looking into. But the thing is, from a layman that's just sitting back in the house watching Disney Plus, and it's like, oh, by the way, got a new show coming out. They'll advertise it on Disney Plus. They'll be like, oh, I'll watch trailer for that. Or they'll have it like where it's automatic.
They normally advertise it like a month or so before it comes out.
But it'd be like, oh, look at this show. It's only because we're looking into it that we know about all the release slate that we think, oh, it's just going to be done in a bulk. They spread it out over time, just like what they're doing with the Marvels. It's a way just to keep people subscribing month after month. That's what they're doing it for.
Like the Andor one's not coming out till 2022, but I don't think they are just doing it for that. They're trying to build the catalogue fast. Basically, it's becoming a streaming war. So you've got your Netflix, your Amazon, your HBO, your Disney Plus, and they're all fighting for subscribers. They're all fighting to try and get to that because, like you said, how many streaming services are you going to subscribe to? And if you're keeping your Sky, I'm guarantee you won't be subscribing to 5 different streaming services.
Well, this is what it comes back to what we were discussing earlier, that it's eventually going to have to get it to a point where those services are going to have to adapt, because it'll get to a point where...
I don't think they are. I think streaming service is the adaptation. I think it's your Sky and your Virgin. They're going to have to adapt it. Your old models of TV viewings just...
Well, that's what I mean. They're going to have to do it in a way where they're going to have to take these subscription services and build it into the bundles and build it into the TV packages to accommodate for it, because more people are going to watch it. Like, it's going to get to a point where I've already discussed how many services I'm paying for at the minute. I know Pick as You're very similar with how many services. Like, if they do release HBO Max over there, I know for a fact I'm going to subscribe to it.
It all depends on price for me. It's $15 a month in America. So if it came over here and it were out more than a tenner, I don't think I'd pay for it. Like, if it were £15 a month over here, I just couldn't justify paying that, as well as paying me Amazon, as well as paying me Netflix, as well as paying me Disney Plus.
Well, Disney have been quite clever with it, though, aren't they? With the price that they put it on originally.
Well, they're a massive company that can afford to do that. I don't think HBO could with Warner Brothers. And I mean, to be fair, I think this is why Warner Brothers are probably pushing a lot more than anybody else for releasing all their 2021 slate on direct demand, because I don't know if they could afford, like Disney, to keep pushing dates back as cinema releases.
Well, no, they're losing out on quite a lot, and I think that's what's angered a lot of people, though, as well, though, that these films they're pushing for these films. Some films it probably makes sense for, like maybe Godzilla and King Kong. I think that might make sense because I think they probably would have made more money putting that film on a streaming service compared to releasing it at the cinema, just based on what happened with the Godzilla sequel. But
The
then
Godzilla sequel made a decent amount of profit, didn't it?
not as much as the first two. So I think it made something like 320 mil or something similar to that. Whereas the first Godzilla and then the King Kong Skull Island one both made 500 mil. So they made more money and they had more of a production budget as well. Whereas this one's got a lot less. So I think that's the thinking. Well, let's put it on the streaming service because we know we'll get the money, but just not get as much money as we'll get the money back, but not take a risk by releasing it cinema based on what the last one's done. Which is a shame, really, because that could kill off quite a lot of film by doing that, not releasing it at cinema. Dune is getting put on the streaming service rather than just being
Yeah, but
exclusively.
it's still getting a cinematic release. That's the thing.
Yeah, but a lot of people are criticizing what they're doing with HBO Max though, because they are trying to kill off cinema to put it
Yeah, but
all on the streaming service.
why would they want to kill off cinema? This is my big thing, right? So think of how much the average moviegoer pays for a film at a cinema. So how much is it to go to Cineworld these days? 13 quid a ticket, a
Something
ridiculous
like that,
amount. So that's 13 quid. Obviously, some of your cinema takes that, but quite a lot of that will go to whoever's made films, so Disney, Warner Brothers, that kind of thing. How they're making a miles amount more, and if it's a successful film, they make a ridiculous amount of profit from it. You couldn't make that on a streaming service. Your streaming service is a fixed rate. Your streaming service is so much a month. That's it. They're not going to pay extra because you release a really good film.
But isn't that
Why would they want to get rid of cinema?
But isn't that
This
what
is my
Disney
thing.
Prime is for? That you pay that
No.
£6 for the extra. Like Mulan was released. You
Well,
pay that
Mulan was
£6.
released on it, and you got that £30, and you got it for 3 months early. So this has been released for free now. So you got it for 3 months early with Premier Access. That and it's something that they're testing. And it's a way to make money, in my mind, because people still aren't comfortable going back to the cinema, and quite a lot of cinemas are still shut. What
but what
else do you
Disney-
want them to do?
Well, this is my original thing because I think what HBO are doing, releasing all this, is just basically a reaction to what's happening in a minute with the pandemic. I agree with you, pickers, that they do probably see more money coming from cinemas than
Not
being put
probably,
up.
they definitely do. It's
But
the
I
most
think
profitable
they're
way to
scared.
release a film.
They're scared, and what they're thinking is ultimately it could be maybe a year or 2 years before things do go back to normal, where they start getting numbers back in a cinema. Whether that happen or not, it's anybody's guess. You don't know what will happen with
I'll
this
read it.
vaccine coming out. Whether people just flock straight back to the bars, restaurants, and cinemas, or it's going to be a gradual thing.
Well, reading earlier, there must be some kind of because everybody knows that cinema is the most profitable way to release a film. We're reading earlier about production companies actually looking into buying cinemas and becoming cinema owners if lights like your Cineworld go under during this pandemic.
Well, doesn't
So I
AMC
don't think they are trying to kill cinema. I think it's complete opposite. It'd be a bad thing for production companies. They'd make a lot less money.
But do you not think if, let's say, if it does go on a lot longer than what we expect, like with HBO's plans to release all these big films, I know they're planning on doing the cinemas, but you know they're going to be releasing it on the streaming service. If that were going to just keep going for a year or two, that would kill off cinema.
No.
You know.
No.
I think cinema will evolve. What you get from cinemas will become a lot more boutique, and it'll become a lot more specified, and you'll pay more, but you'll get more of a wow, this is an experience. Whereas now you get much more of a everybody goes because this is the only way to enjoy it. I think you'll get a much better experience. You'll pay more, but you'll get much more of a event experience.
My prediction is that this is a good thing because what's going to happen, right, is exactly the same as what happens now. If you're not too excited about a film, what do? You don't go to cinema to watch it. You either wait until it comes out free or you download it illegally. Now, what you're going to be able to do is look at a film and go, I won't mind watching that, but I don't want to pay £13 that you pay at cinema. I'll stream it at home instead. This is going to be that's going to be the difference. There's no way that I won't be watching a new Marvel film or a new excited film, a film that I'm excited for, not at a cinema. Cinemas are always going to exist, I think. I think they're just going to change, like Elliott says. I still think like your big cinema chains, like your Cineworld and stuff like that, I think they're still going to be about. Can't see them getting shut down. It's too much of a moneymaker.
In maybe, say, 5-10 years, is it just going to be a select genre of films released at cinema while other stuff gets released on a streaming service? What are your money makers going to be at the cinema in 5-10 years? Is it just going to be people going to watch comic book films and Disney films and stuff like that, like sort of potential franchises, and then your smaller stuff doesn't get released at cinema, just gets put on there? Is that, do you think, what
as
cinema
Pickers
could
said,
provide?
there'll be more risk taken on those streaming platforms, and that'll be where your new IPs, your interesting things happen. I think that the big franchises, the things that they know make money, are going to win awards. Those will still take place. I mean, a lot of streaming services, their main selling points is that they have a lot of binge-worthy content. And if they move to a weekly service in the way that they seem to be moving towards, how their audience will react to that, and what if it's just TV series related or if it's audience interest related.
I think Netflix. I'd have to see if they actually ever published out about it, but that's the reason why Netflix were releasing some of their content weekly at one point. Well, just to see the differences in it and see if it kept people talking about it on social media for longer, see if it kept people's interest just as much, or if people didn't like it, kind of thing. They must have decided on the binge because that's what they've gone back to now. Whenever it's a Netflix original, they chuck it all on there at once, don't they?
But do you not think if streaming services do start to take off, that they might go back to weekly stuff? That
They
they
will
could
in
test
order to
reorder?
keep you paying for that subscription service, because I think that's what keeps people paying. If they find something they like, they're more likely to pay for it for 2-3 months if they think that the show that they like is going to stay on. Whereas they'll probably pay for 1 month's worth of subscription, binge watch the whole content, and then they'll move on to the next subscription service until next year when the next series is out.
Not me. I know for a fact I'm a Netflix for lifer. I don't think I could ever get rid of it now. I think I've had it too long. It's changed how I view TV. I love it like it's a real thing. I think I'd struggle to cancel my Netflix
But that's a different question
subscription.
because that's more about brand than
I think,
the series.
yeah.
So
I
what you're
think even
saying,
if the quality dropped, and even if they did start doing things that I didn't like they released everything weekly, even if I didn't watch it anymore, I think I'd probably just pay it I'd just pay it as though I felt like I needed to, like a thank you. I don't think I could ever cancel it.
it's an interesting point.
Yeah, that's
I
the
think
thing.
that-
I've cancelled my Now TV subscription, but I can't seem to bring myself to cancel my Netflix or my Amazon Prime. And yeah, I'm getting my Amazon Prime for your 1-day delivery and other stuff. But I get what you mean about that. It's bringing yourself to cancel Netflix. Do you not feel that if you cancel Netflix, you're just doing an injustice really by cancelling it?
I don't know. It just feels a bit. It's weird to describe, but I'd probably say like it feels like you're doing something wrong, like you're doing something rude. I can't really describe it.
So what you're saying is you have an emotional connection to a brand based on what they've given you.
I think so, yeah.
And the idea that you look at a streaming platform and you go, I would support them regardless of what their content turns into. In the way that you wouldn't support the BBC. If the BBC, right, we're not on digital TV anymore, I assume that you probably wouldn't bat an eyelid.
No.
But you would for
Yeah.
Netflix.
I have got an emotional connection with Netflix because I'm quite proud of. It's weird in a way. I'm quite
Being
proud
part
of
of that journey?
Well, no, I'm proud of what I've watched. For instance, I have my own Netflix profile, and I have other profiles that I pay for other people to watch their stuff on. Whereas my profile is purely for me, what I want to watch. But I'm quite happy to look back through, my watch it again list and see what I've watched and thought, you know what, that were good, because it's based on what I want to watch and what Netflix delivered to me, and what they,
So what
Are
you're
you one of
suggesting
these
is
people-
that the algorithm, the data they collect on you and what they advertise to you is something you want to watch. That personalised, catered experience is what you
Well,
pay for Netflix.
they do give me stuff so they will recommend shows based. I mean, not all, most of the time I'll probably ignore it, but there'll be odd little bits in there that I will watch and think, you know what, that was actually good, and I'll watch it based on that. Majority of the time, I'm watching stuff based on me going out and actively searching for it, but that all goes into obviously their data. So when they're recommending stuff, they probably know that 20 shows I'll probably ignore, but it'll just be that one show that I might pick up or film that I'll watch, and then they've got a viewer there. But yeah, I'll be honest, I get quite.
Emotionally attached.
I'm proud of me watch it again list because I'm proud of what I've watched, and I know it's all good stuff that I've watched. That's why I have other profiles that everybody else can watch their stuff on, but my profile is my stuff.
I say
Weird, anyway.
I would really like that, and slowly over time it kills you because you see like girlfriend will put something on and things like that, and people will start watching stuff on your account by accident.
This is why I made sure people have their own profiles.
Yeah, but
you have to put down the house rules that if you're watching my Netflix, that you stay away from that profile.
The catered experience that is personalised to your preferences is more important than anything.
yeah, I'd say so. I'm proud of the things that I watch. If anybody starts talking to me about TV or all like that, I don't back down from a conversation. Or I get quite excited and start talking about TV shows that I'm watching at the minute or things that I'm waiting to come out. So yeah, I'd say the tailored aspect of Netflix is a big one for me.
I'd say that, yeah. And the aspect I'm quite proud of it. I feel like I put a lot of effort into it over years to build up that watch list and stuff that I have watched that I can have. I'm saying with you, I can have a conversation with people about TV and film, and most of the time be able to relate to what they're saying and know about it.
If they offered achievements, like in the same way that Xbox or PlayStation do for finishing a series, the sort of awards, do you think that would make you more interested in watching finishing a series?
That would not be a good thing. No, that.
So that's too much.
I'd be having challenges with it. I'd be trying to get more achievements than Kyle, or I'd be trying to just take over my life, take it one step too far.
I don't know if I would like.
You would love it, Kyle. Let's not build the line.
Well, this is what I mean. I'm in half of mind because it's same. I'd probably quite love that to get a trophy come up when I watch a TV show. Could be like, I'd be buzzing about it, but at the same time, I don't know if it'd be a good idea. I don't know if it's too cheesy that over time the novelty would probably wear off.
No, but there's a sort of gamification of it encourages you to continue to pay for the service. It makes you want to watch new things. So you're not exactly interested in the platform or the content. It's the personalization. It's how it connects to you and you feel a personal attachment to it.
See, the only I get that, and I like the competitiveness about it. The only issue I find is there's some things I watch on Netflix that, for instance, Black Lightning. I watched that, and the only reason I kept watching that TV show is just to get it off my continue watching list. It's not something I'm proud of watching, because it's a shit TV show. So I won't want to be rewarded for watching shit stuff. For instance, like you're never going to get 100% completion on it on Netflix if you're doing it with things like that. That's the thing with how it works on games, and I quite like is eventually you're going to get to a point where you're 100% completed it, and then it is. Whereas with Netflix, it's going to be a continuous thing.
You've got to think so. Like when you're watching TV, it's a lot the same, to be fair. So when you're watching TV, sometimes you want something just blase, Big Bang Theory, that kind of thing. Something you can just chill out to, not really pay attention to. Sometimes you're in mood for something dark and something,
you have to pay attention to.
Yeah, you have to really get into. Sometimes you just want action and things like that. You know what I mean? It'd be the same with porn. Like sometimes you're in mood for something a bit.
Yeah, but you can hide your suggestions. You can say, "I don't want to see this recommendation anymore."
Yeah, but could you imagine? Like it's like not deleting your clearing your history when somebody finds it and they can see what you've been looking at. Like how much worse would that be when they find your profile and they can see all trophies you've got and what you've been watching?
So do you see a world in which you want your Netflix history deleted because you don't want people to know what you were looking up at Netflix?
No.
Well, no, because
that's because you're the type of audience that sees it as a reward.
No, it's because everybody enjoys a bit of cheesy. Everybody's got one TV series that's cheesy and shit like me. I'm an absolute massive Gilmore Girls fan. Everybody's. I've watched every episode of Gossip Girl. Everybody's got
a guilty
every
pleasure.
now and again, a little guilty pleasure. But
I like iZombie.
And that's easy. That's happy to admit, but you don't admit your guilty pleasure when it comes to porn. It's just not an accepted thing yet.
I tell you what I wouldn't mind with Netflix, which you just give me an idea of it, is some sort of loyalty bonus. So not so much trophies, but you get like
you've watched 100 hours. Here's 10% off.
Well, no, not monetary. I'm not bothered if it's like stuff like that. The thing
you
that
get behind the scenes.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, extra content and things.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Good idea.
Content or exclusive access to stuff. You can say, by the way, we're thinking about bringing out these shows. Because you're a loyal member, here are the pilots. We just want to know what you think about them. So a bit like a loyalty bonus, or like what Cineworld do, where you get invitations to film
exclusive screening.
Yeah, an exclusive screen and stuff like that. Where I'm not asking for it, but if they were going to give me anything, that's what I'd be wanting. I'm not bothered about having. I mean, don't get me wrong, I won't mind it being discounted, but.
Well, yeah, but 10% to £11.99. So what you wouldn't even get £2 knocked off. You know what I mean?
I'm not
really that bothered.
I plan every month in my budget that I know my £11.99 Netflix is coming out, and that's it. I know that money's coming out. I'm not even bothered about it. I'm not bothered about a monetary value, but something like loyalty based, I wouldn't mind it. I'm not asking for it, but if they're going to start doing stuff like that, I think that's the way I'd prefer it.
So you know how Netflix used, well, they still do, employ people to watch their content and review it in order to help the algorithm pick things for you. What you'd prefer is to get rid of them, and if you watch so much content, they give you a load of pilots, and they say, right, you can
Well, no,
give
I'm
your
not saying about.
feedback on it.
I'm not saying that's what they should be doing. I'm saying
Oh
it should
no,
be
but
something
it's a
similar to that.
suggestion of
I'm
ways
not
that
gonna.
they can make
I'm not
their
actually
service
going.
cheaper at the
Yeah, but
same time as providing you something additional, a loyalty bonus.
well, I'm not. I'm saying if they do that, I'm not going to advocate something which is going to cause someone to lose their job. But it's interesting though that you said it, because you're not bothered about a monetary thing. If you're going to start doing stuff, it would be content related.
I think it's interesting that you both picked that you would stick with the brand and that you're interested in what they do rather than you're interested in the individual series, because that sort of suggests a more long-term future for.
And so I were always a bit worried about Netflix at the beginning. I never really saw. Have you ever looked into how much money they actually spend on making original content? One of the years they spent something ridiculous like 20 billion. It was an absolute ridiculous amount, and I know that they're still in like I don't think they're still turned a profit yet. I think they're just constantly in debt, and the subscribers kind of pay interest on that debt. And I were always a bit worried about whether or not it's the next level of TV or never, or whether it'll be around in 10 years, 15 years. But lately, I mean, like I've just said, I'd never cancel mine. It is it is the evolution of TV, or how we're going to watch TV. I think you've just got to get all old timers out of the way first that watch Coronation Street every night at 7 o'clock and things.
To sort of finish it up, you wouldn't unsubscribe from Netflix. Would you unsubscribe from Amazon Prime or Disney Plus, or do they hold the same value?
Disney probably not, but I think at the moment that might be because one, I'm biased. I'm a massive Disney fan, go to Disney World every year, but also it's ridiculously cheap for what it is. You got every Disney film that pretty much ever been made,
So
and
that access to the back catalogue.
yeah, it were ridiculously cheap compared to stocking up your Blu-ray collection. It's a bargain. Amazon Prime, I cancel it all the time. As soon as they get rid of my student status, I cancel it and then redo it when they let me have my student discount again on it.
See, I will still keep my Amazon Prime because I went through a stage where I did cancel it, but there is good content on there, more than I think what people realise.
Is that because the interface of the app is so terrible?
That's what I was just about to point out. I really do not like that interface. It's dog shit.
Oh, it is. It is awful. And the thing is, ironically, Amazon Prime with their on-demand service has been going a lot longer than Netflix. It's like Amazon, they started off before while Netflix was still doing, the disc subscription service. But yeah, their interface is shocking. Disney's is not bad, but it's still not anywhere close to what.
I enjoy the Disney one. The one good aspect that they've got that I think could probably be brought onto Netflix, but I don't know how to make it work, is the collections. You know, you've got different films all bundled together inside a collection. So if you want to watch a festive film at the moment, you click on the festive collection. It's got every Christmas film, every Christmas episode,
categorized than they do on
Yeah,
Netflix. So they pick it by genre.
But the thing is with Disney Plus is they've got, Netflix's library's always changing, changes
That's the
like every
issue.
month. Whereas with Disney, it's everything preloaded on there. That's why they can do it with your collection. I think it'd be a little bit more challenging with Netflix, and I do find it annoying sometimes that I'll watch a particular film on Netflix, and it might not be a new film. It might just be an old film that I wanted to watch, and then like The League, for instance. I love The League as a TV show, and I used to watch it. It's similar, like Always Sunny and Community. It's one of those shows that I can just keep watching, go back and watch it, or How I Met Your Mother, where I'll watch it from first episode all the way to last episode because they're only 20 minutes. But I was quite annoyed when that got taken off Netflix.
I can remember I originally started watching it on Amazon, and then it got took off Amazon and put on Netflix.
Do you think they're in competition, or do you think they're just happy doing their own things and just leaving them be?
I don't think it starts out as a competition, but I think it's slowly going to end up there because, well, especially now Disney's joint party and there's so many other streaming services that are coming out. it's going to get to a point where as soon as you've got so many that are so big, they have to be in competition with each other. They have to be at war because average Joe's not going to pay all them subscriptions prices, so they've got to fight for that market.
Especially when it comes down to studio-based stuff as well, because the thing is, it's like Disney are in a fortunate position because they know they've got all the MCU and Star Wars stuff, but when it comes down to things later on down the line, like I know it's a shit film franchise, but like Fast and Furious, that gets to a point where there's going to be a streaming service wanting to take that on board, and studio wants to give away the rights. There's going to be competition through Gus for those films.
Well,
Whether it's Netflix going it for it, Disney.
I mean, you got to have a look as well. If Disney keeps getting any bigger, it's going to be hard for Netflix to be able to even. I mean, like Always Sunny in Philadelphia is now owned by Netflix and now by Disney. All FX shows are all owned by Disney. It's going to get to a point where Netflix will not be able to do all. I think that probably the best thing they ever did was they became a studio and started making original content.
But are they though? Because the thing is, Disney have got a brand, and I know obviously they're going to do Deadpool 3, which is going to be probably the first Disney-made R-rated. Quote me, you know more about Disney than me, Pickers, but is that going to be the first R-rated Disney film made? Right, okay. But they've got a brand, like the House of Mouse brand.
Yep.
Whereas stuff like, that's on FX, like You're Always Sunny stuff, are they going to want that on Disney Plus?
Yes.
Or are they going to create their own IP? Or are they just going to charge?
So they already announced this with the announcement of all the TV shows, in the shareholders meeting.
Yeah.
So what they're going to do on Disney Plus is that they're putting in a separate section that's going to have it's going to be an adults section. So I don't know how they're going to do it.
Is it not going to hurt the Disney image though when stuff like that?
I don't think so, because everybody already knows that Disney now owns things like Die Hard.
I think
and stuff like that. So
the streaming platform allows them to.
Where can you stream Die Hard at minute?
Well, you can't unless you go on Disney
Plus. Exactly. You can't even stream it on Disney Plus.
Well, there's Die Hard.
Die Hard 2's on Amazon. That's it.
Oh yeah.
You look on Netflix. There's no Die Hard 1 anywhere out there. The only place you can get it at a minute is on Sky. So that's because Disney they've announced that they're going to do a separate section. It'll all be in when you're setting it up, that you can set up child block and things like that, and certain profiles will be able to see it and certain profiles won't. But that's where all your Die Hard's going to be, and I'm assuming that's where all your FX things are going to go as well, like Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And your Family Guy and all your American stuff in there as well.
I mean, they must want to do it because they've just picked up Always Sunny for 4 seasons. It's now going to be the longest ever live.
Yeah, it's 18
TV
seasons.
show.
Yeah, they've announced it for. That'd be interesting because it's always on It's on Netflix at the minute, so they're going to pull all that away.
Exactly, yeah. So it's just like what they did with all Marvel stuff. They pulled out Marvel stuff when they were getting ready to throw their own Disney Plus up.
So, just to pull it back to the original question, just to end it all off, is streaming services the death of cinema?
No.
Why do you believe that?
No.
Because cinemas print too much money. They make too much money. It's still the most profitable way for films to make a profit. It's still the best way for them to do it. I think cinema is going to change. I think studios are going to look at streaming a lot closer. There's probably going to be a lot more streaming services popping up. There's going to be a lot more partnerships popping up. I think there's going to be a lot more original content going straight on to on demand, but I think your cinemas are still going to be there in 50 years, 100 years.
Kyle, quickly, what do you think?
Well, before I even went into this, I was thinking HBO Max. Potentially, I was thinking that they might have killed off cinema, but what Disney released and how they're going to be releasing it, I think is saved cinema. I think there is going to be a massive shift.
Thank you both for your comment. You can end the podcast there. Thank you for everyone's time.
Thank you.